Welcome to the Gentleman Project podcast. I'm Cory Moore.
And I'm Kirk Chugg. This morning we have Eric Harrison from Houston, Texas with us on the podcast. Eric and I met a few years ago at an event in Salt Lake City, and I was impressed by this gentleman's gravitas in the room. He's a large man in stature, but he also just has this air of confidence, and I was drawn to go over and talk to Eric. I've followed Eric since and have been able to see what he teaches and what he talks about, what he trains about. He's a business professional out of Houston, and he has made contributions in the lives of individuals and businesses all over the world. Eric has worked with young people in sports as well as in the classroom over the last 30 years. He loves the opportunity to enhance the lives of others through positive affirmations, through language. He's just a fantastic trainer, and we're blessed to have him on the podcast today. And it's also his birthday today. So thanks for spending valuable time with us today, Eric. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. First of all, I appreciate the gift that you guys are giving me to spend a little time with you guys, because I know you're busy all over the country doing your thing. And Kirk, it's great seeing you, man. You know, it's been a little while. You know, it's just good seeing you, man. We had a great time when we met, and now we're back together again. So this should be great.
You always talk about leaving a legacy. Why has that become such a passion for you? And what inspired that topic as you travel the country and train people? Why have you focused on legacy? Probably
about 5 years ago, I was in a deep funk. I was trying to figure out exactly what I want to do with my life. People may say it's a midlife crisis. Some people call it that. But I just felt like I was transitioning into a new area of life. My sons are grown now. They're men themselves. So, you know, they didn't need me as much. If anyone has any grown sons, they know that they probably don't talk to them hardly ever at all unless they need something, whether it's a babysitter or some money. You know, they're doing pretty good financially, so I really wasn't hearing from them too much. So it was a transition in my life, and it was time to change. And I really didn't know who I was at that time. So when I thought about the word legacy, we keep thinking about legacy as something that we leave in the future to our children or to people who come along after us. But legacy really gives us our identity, because legacy can also, you can look back at family members and at people who were in your life before you to really understand who you are. So what I did was I started digging and understanding some things. First, I started with my dad, and then I started with other family members. And when I started seeing all the amazing things that we had done, I was like, man, I didn't know any of this. And I started understanding myself more. I started understanding my thought processes more. And then I was able to, you know, communicate that to my sons. So when I talk to people, when I train people, when I have workshops, when I coach people, that's what I let them know, is that legacy is not what you leave after all the time. It's also who you are. It gives you your identity.
How do you talk to your sons about that now? What do you tell them about legacy? And you have this view of the world that's different now than it was before. Mm-hmm. Do you talk to your sons about legacy and how they can leave a legacy?
Well, I absolutely do. I am blessed to have my father here. My father is in his 80s, and he's here in Houston with me. I've moved him down here with me. And so is my brother. My family is pretty much all together, and all the boys are pretty much all together. So the legacy is pretty much a daily ritual for us, because we come together pretty much almost every other day at times. And my dad will be like, hey, come over, man. You know, let's see what we can, you know, let's get some food or let's watch the game. And we all bust out into these stories. And my dad comes up with these stories that are pretty amazing. Being 81, you can only imagine some of the stuff that he talks about. My boys are in awe, and they can't believe it, because they're like, wow, you know, I have some of those same thoughts, but you're old. You know, young people always think they know everything. But so that's what happens. And then what I tell my boys all the time is, don't get so caught up in the here and now and allow pressure to just be too much for you. You know what I mean? Especially with social media and all this stuff going on. Don't get so caught up into that. Take some time to relax, retreat, and understand who you really are. And the best way to do it is, you know, finding out who you are through your family and legacy.
So you say that a lot of that may have been inspired by going back in time, generations, and seeing what people in your family dealt with, or the lessons that you learned from people that had gone before you and the legacy that they had left. You have any stories or anything like that really stood out to you and impacted you to make a change or to change this mindset about the importance of leaving a legacy to your kids? Any of those stories that you could share with us about your family?
Most definitely, most definitely. I'll go back to my mother and father. They both came from rural Mississippi. It was pretty rough at that time. Not much education, but a lot of will and grit. They were going to make it regardless of what went on. Education, whatever it was, they were going to make it. One of the stories my dad always tells me is when he first came here, and I pass it on to my boys too, when he first came to Chicago, rather, not here, but to Chicago, he only had a fifth grade education, but he was 18 years old. 18 years old with a fifth grade education, because he had to stop going to school to work for his family. That's the only way that his family could eat and make it and stuff like that. So they saw how big he was. He was this big strapping guy. Like, you see how big I am. My dad is just like me. So same thing. They put him in high school and he didn't know any of that stuff. He was just like, oh my God, this sucks. I can't do this. So he left. I'm done. Can't do this anymore. And what he did is he went out and started walking the streets of Chicago and just finding odd jobs and being the best that he could be at every last one of them. He got to the place where he was so good. He worked at a grocery store. He was so good that they promoted him to like the head produce guy. And he was making all these beautiful things, in the produce aisles and all these different things. And people from all over the city were coming. And I'm like, who is this guy that's doing this? Did he go to school for this? And my dad's like, no, I never went to school for that. And that's how he started his whole career. So he didn't even do things the same way that we would do them now by going to school. Fast forward to today, all three of my boys are entrepreneurs now. And when he told them that story, they understood exactly why they are who they are. Going to school was hard for them even. They was like, well, I could get decent grades, but this feels so weird. I don't know. And they all left and they all wound up having businesses that are doing quite well. That's why I told you about the financial thing, by the way, because they don't contact me for money that much. I think I need to call one of them for some money since it's my birthday. But anyway, that story really rings true to my heart because it lets me know that our family never gives up. We never quit, no matter what. You know what I mean? And that's a big deal. So
knowing who you are because you know what you come from and yes. The legacy that's before you, you kind of have something to live up to. We've talked about it in the past where sometimes we set expectations on our kids that they have to be better than us. And if they aren't, then they're failures. So this is a great example of maybe a healthy expectation that this is just part of who we are. This is part of our family culture. Exactly. as we move forward, the expectation that we don't quit and that we find a way to make things work.
Exactly. And the other thing about it too, you just brought up something that's amazing. I did have that problem at one time. I'm gonna be honest and my father had to check me on that of all people, but I was really hard on my boys. I mean, my boys are pretty tall. I'm 6'6", all athletic. So, they were in athletics and they were pushing. And as their dad, us as dads, what we'll do is we'll get on them and push them and really go hard at them. But sometimes they're really not feeling it. And he was the one that pulled my coattail and said, hey, man, you got to get up off of something, man. You've got these expectations that are so high, but do they really want to do that? And he was the one that kind of helped me, dial it down on my boys and actually helped me have a better relationship with them. So I appreciate him for that. And what you say is so true.
So as you raise these boys of yours who sound like they're amazing entrepreneurs and you're super proud of them, what kind of things do you look back and go, man, I wish I would have done a couple of these things different. And oh man, I'm so glad I did these couple of things.
One of the things I wish I would have done different with them is I wish I'd have spent a little more time individually with each of my boys. I did a lot of group things. We did a lot of family stuff. But now, as we're older, I've got my individual times with each one of them because, they have their own lives. They have their own families. So they all can't come together at the same time. I wish I would have just taken more time to just sit with each one on their own, one-on-one, just to get to know them better. You know what I mean? Instead of always having the corporate family thing going on. We go on a vacation together and we do all these things together. I wish I would have took a little bit more time to get to know each and every one of them because what I'm finding is is that each one of my boys have a facet of me. Each one of them have one of my characteristics stands out with each and every one of them, which is so cool. I enjoy that, but I think I could have enjoyed that a lot more earlier in my life with them. The one thing that I am happy that I taught them and helped them to understand is they should always be above reproach. Always be above reproach, regardless of any situation. Even if you feel that you've been treated unfairly, still don't stop giving your best. Always, your best effort, your best foot forward at all times, and be above reproach. Because what happens in those situations is that at first it feels horrible. It's the worst feeling in the world. It feels like, oh, it's so unfair. Why is everybody doing this to me? But in the long run, somebody's going to see you, and it's going to work out for them and you in the long run. And, at first that was a really tough lesson for them, especially as kids. They're like, why do we have to do all these things? I don't feel like doing this. But now it's so cool because they keep bringing it back to me. Dad, you always said be above reproach. And actually now that same lesson comes back on me when I want to kind of bellyache about stuff, and they'll come back to me and tell me that same thing. So
that's interesting that you bring that up, because I've been talking to my kids about that this week, about being above reproach, like not putting yourself in a situation where your actions could be misunderstood by someone else.
Exactly.
And kind of just keeping yourself out of that situation entirely, knowing from the outside in what it might look like. And, your family name that you carry with you, it matters what people perceive. It might not be what you're doing, but it matters what people perceive you're doing. Correct. And so I love that lesson of being above reproach. Eric, I was wondering if we could go into a little bit of, you wrote a book.
Yes.
And I want to talk a bit about that because it intrigues me a little bit to know the story behind this. And if you're willing to share that story with us, I think it will create a better understanding of this book and maybe interest people in going out and grabbing this book. It's called Life Twists, and it's one word. What events inspired this book for you? I'm assuming that it's because life didn't go exactly the way that you had imagined it going. Can you share some of the backstory of your personal experience with Life Twists, and then what you learned from it and why you created and wrote a book?
Most definitely. So I had some significant events happen in my life. The first one was having a heart attack. I was out with a good friend. We were having a good time. And all of a sudden, I felt this crazy pain in my chest. And I didn't understand what it was. I just thought it was like, gas. I had a hot dog or something and I was fine. Long story short, I wound up being in the hospital and they told me I had the widowmaker, which, if you know anything about the widowmaker, is a small percentage of people who make it from that. It's 100% blockage in the largest artery of your heart to the largest part of your heart. So they told me that a large part of my heart was dead because no oxygen was getting to it. And it's a blessing that I'm here today. So then soon after that, I got a divorce. I was married for over 21 years. And so that shook me. And then I wound up moving to a different part of the country. I was in Chicago at the time, and I wound up moving out east to Connecticut. So when I got to Connecticut, and I had a pretty good job, but I was confused, man. I just had so much stuff going on, and my identity was really wrapped up into my relationships that were connected to my marriage, which was over 21 years. And I just had so many questions. So what I started doing is I just started writing. I started writing it, and that was my therapy. It was cathartic. I had short stories about my father and mother and their relationship. I had questions about love and family and how to know who you are, all of those things. And I would write short stories, poems, and even anecdotes. I wrote them pretty much every day for about 5 months until finally I noticed all this paper that I had around me. And I said, man, I might as well put all this together in a book. And that's what I did. I self-published it. I got it out there. And I found that it's helped many people to answer a lot of those questions about their own lives.
So talk to us a little bit about this book, like the contents of it. Eric, this is cool.
Yeah. So the book is separated into 5 chapters. It deals with relationships. It deals with self. It deals with even business. It also deals with your identity. And these are all things that I was just having problems with. I just didn't understand them. And I'm going to be honest, I tried to go to a therapist and talk to someone. And lo and behold, before I knew it, I was giving the therapist advice. And I'm like, wait a minute, why am I paying you and I'm giving you advice? This is weird. So I felt kind of off because of that. So I just went to writing. And each chapter really peels back your thought processes on each one of those areas. I think sometimes we get so caught up in our obligations and responsibilities on a daily basis, we never take the time to just stop and just retreat from all of that stuff and really just think about where our lives are today. As fathers, especially, because as a father, we have so much responsibility. The family looks up to us. If you're married, then your wife looks up to you as well. And we get so caught up in the day-to-day things that we're responsible for. So one of the things that I did in the book is I encourage people to just stop and just take a look at where their lives are today. And again, as I said about legacy, go back and understand exactly who they are, where they came from. And then it began to answer all those questions for me. Some of it is my opinion, yeah, but a lot of it is guided, and it helps people to really understand, hey, I can do this for myself as well.
Now, you not only wrote a book, but you also wrote, directed, and produced a documentary about your family's legacy, right?
Yes, it's called Love and Legacy, yes.
So talk to us a little bit about that.
That was a super fun project. I was actually in Salt Lake City, and I was feeling pretty lonely because, I was the only one there and none of my family was around. And I was like, man, I need to do something cool with the boys. I haven't seen them in a while, and we need to do something cool. So I sat down and I started writing. And I said, what would I want to leave for the world to see about my family, about my boys, about my relationship with my boys? So I started writing and I came up with the movie, Love and Legacy. I wound up driving to Chicago from Salt Lake. I picked up my brother in Iowa. He was in Iowa and he was a part of the movie. And I picked him up and we shot the documentary in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago, the side of the city that I grew up in, that I love with all my heart. It just broke down what my boys thought about our family history, how some of the lessons that I taught them really are helping them with their life today. It was so funny because, we did have a script, but man, we went totally away from the script and they started talking and we started crying and it was something else. And my father does a lot of talking and he says some things that are so powerful because he says some stuff that we didn't even know. That documentary is powerful. A lot of people from all over the world have reached out to me and said, man, I want to do something just like this with my family. And wow, you guys are so transparent and you share everything. And by the way, we even talk about the heart attack and all that stuff in there and how it affected my boys. So that was pretty powerful too. Kirk, you got me with that one, man. Not that I forgot I did it, but I didn't even mention it.
I've followed you and watched you and seen some of the things that you've done. You always talk about your family. Your family is like number one for you. And in all of your affirmations and all of the things that you post on social media, it seems like you're doing all of those things for your family. Like you're way into physical fitness. I know now why you're so into going to the gym, because that heart attack, the fact that you're here and still contributing is a miracle, it sounds like. And
yeah. Most definitely.
That makes a lot more sense to me now, but everything Kurt, you talk about is...
Kurt, I may look good. You say, oh man, you're handsome. Dude, I don't even care about that. I just want to live. I'm serious, dude. It is not about, oh, you look good. No, I just want to live, man. After that heart attack, it just gave me a new lease on life. That Kurt, you know more about me than me. You scared me, man.
Well, you make an impact on people that follow you and that engage with you. So, you're always putting out good stuff. So I thank you for that.
Well, Eric, your boys are older now. How are you connecting with them now? And are there any grandkids in the mix?
Oh, are there any grandkids? Most definitely. So I have two grandchildren. My oldest son has given them to me, so he's my favorite son now because he's given me two grandkids. No, I'm just kidding. That's not. I don't mean that.
Maybe a little teeny bit, a little teeny bit.
A little bit, a little bit. My granddaughter, her name is Kalia, and my grandson's name is Hendrix. When I think of them and when I look at them, I see the word legacy all over them because, first of all, how they look just like someone that's in our family. So that's number one. Then when I see their mannerisms, and I mean, Kalia right now is 8. And when I tell you she acts just like my mother, and a lot of the people that I know in my family, it's amazing to me. And then little Hendrix, and Hendrix is he's like 15 months old. So, he's almost still a newborn. But man, that dude, his attitude, his aggressiveness, and that smile, it's amazing. With my oldest son, that's definitely how I connect with him, through the grandchildren. Now, my other two sons, I connect with them through a lot of their business endeavors. Again, they are doing some amazing things as entrepreneurs. And I'm blessed to have them be able to come to me and get advice and sit down and talk to me. Now, do we always agree? Absolutely not. We don't get into heated debates, but we do go back and forth. Because, one of the things that I really enjoy with them is that they have their own thought processes, and they really have helped me too, to be a better person and even a better businessman too.
You have a good group of friends around you. I see them on social media. Mm-hmm. Who are your mentors? Who are the people that you currently learn from?
Number one's my dad, no doubt. Being 81, he's had a couple of health challenges, health scares. One of the things that I love more than anything is he wants to talk. And there's nothing better than sitting down with an elder and just letting them give you a brain dump. Like, to me, that's the best thing in the world to me. And he sits and he talks to me and he looks at me sometimes and he shakes his head. And I've learned not to say anything when he's doing all that because he's thinking, he's processing. And then before I know it, he just blurts out exactly what he needs to say. Hey, you know what? You're doing too much of this. You need to slow down. You need to do more of this. You need to, and it's not pressure, but it's just him loving on me in such a way to always want to see me be my best. My whole life, he's always kind of held me to a high standard, but never put pressure on me. So he would always tell me, now, Eric, that's really not your best. You can do better than that. But he would never yell at me and scream at me and, punish me for it. He would just say, come on, Eric, you can do better. And it's funny. It seems as though whenever he said, I'm disappointed in you, that probably was the worst thing that I heard in my entire life. When my dad said, man, I'm disappointed. Like, why did you even do that? So he and I have this tie and this connection that's amazing. So he is definitely my number one mentor. I've also had business mentors too, but he's a good friend of mine, and his name is Kane Hayes. And Kane is the CEO of a healthcare company in Boston, one of the largest healthcare companies in Boston. It's a merger between Harvard and Tufts. And he's done some amazing things in the boardroom and corporations all over the country. I never was a corporate guy. I never liked being in meetings. I thought that they were a waste of my time. And it's like, let's go. And he always was the one to say, Eric, you got to slow down, man. If you don't slow down, man, you're just going to run over all kinds of good stuff. And you say you always want to help people. Well, if you want to help people, you've got to slow down to see what other people have to offer. So Kane is one of my big mentors too. So those are my two main guys. Kane hasn't called me this morning yet either, man. What's up with that? It's my birthday.
It's my birthday, man.
Yeah. Something's going on.
Well, he probably knows you're doing a podcast this morning. So
actually, I told him that.
What do you hope that from your legacy that is handed down to your grandkids? Like, what things do you think to yourself, man, I hope these one or two principles or these one or two true north things that we've created, what do you hope's handed down to them, to the grandkids?
Wow. Great question. I want them to understand that no matter what they want to do in life, they can do it. I want them to be free of doubt. I want them to be free of unbelief. And I want them to see what they're truly made of. Remember what I said earlier about not giving up, and the story about my dad, who, I mean, I kind of went through that pretty fast, but if you slow that down a little bit, fifth grade education, going to a whole new city, you know, leaving school and still wind up being a successful entrepreneur. I want my grandchildren and even the children after them, or the generations after them, to understand that no matter what you put your mind to, no matter what it is, no matter how outrageous it is, that you can do it, that you can do it. Don't give up, don't give in, don't quit, and just keep going no matter what. I can see that in Kalia and Hendrix now. And I think sometimes what happens is, as children grow up, we start telling them about life, and, you know, and life starts to kind of put them in a box, right? And they stop believing. But as we all know, man, children have the greatest faith, right? Like, if mama and daddy tells them that they can fly, man, they're going to try to figure it out. I can fly, I can do whatever. And it's like, I don't want them to lose that. I want them to still have that wide-eyed excitement about whatever they're doing. I don't want them doing stuff just for money, you know, but I want them to do it because they love it. Because one of the things that I always say is, I help people to do what they love to do for the people they love, so they can build rich and long-lasting legacies. And I think that's the best way for me to pass that down to them and to continue that tradition.
That is the what you want to pass down. Can you talk to us about how you're passing that down? One of the things that you always use is a positive affirmation.
Yes.
And those affirmations can almost sound a little artificial when you say them, because I think we don't believe them. But when you do that with your grandkids and you instill in them this belief that no matter what they set their mind to, they can accomplish that. What's the how behind that? I love the takeaways from the podcast where people can go, hey, I'm going to try that. That's going to be something that I'm going to do. And we've talked a little bit, I believe one of our guests just in the last month talked about how on the car ride to school, they do positive affirmations for the day. What are some of the habits that you have seen that's successful in implementing positive affirmations into yourself and into your kids?
This is how I do it for both. I start with things that are small. I don't go with the biggest, most outrageous thing, but I start with small stuff every day. That I'm going to be the best person that I could be. That I'm going to have a heart to help and to heal and to be great. I have a list of things that I go over with my grandchildren when they're with me. I did it even when they were babies, and people would be like, they don't understand what you're saying, but I knew they did. And I would just start with simple stuff. Like, man, I'm going to share my toys with all my friends, and I'm not going to hoard and be mean to them. I'm going to be generous and love unconditionally. So what I've started doing is, now I've attached it to certain things that I see that they like to do. Like Kalia likes sports. She loves sports. So now I say, hey, I'm going to be the best soccer player that I can be. I'm going to be the best teammate that I can be. So you say, man, that's so simple. But if you start doing the simple things and they start seeing the manifestation of those simple things in their life, then it's easy to believe bigger things. See, if you go the other way around, where you're believing for this big, huge, monstrous thing, and you don't see it right away, that could be discouraging, especially for a child. So that's what I do for myself and them. And then also, as I'm doing that for myself and they see it, we celebrate the victories that any of us have, whether it's me, whether it's them, no matter who it is, we celebrate those victories. And we say, you know what, we were saying that every day. And look what happened. Look what came out of that. Look what manifested.
That's great. Well, Cory, that goes right back to our Atomic Habits that we've both been studying lately. Like, I love that. You got to start with the small stuff so that you can get little wins, and then the wins get bigger and bigger and bigger until you believe what you've been telling yourself every single day.
Kirk, think about this. Love Bible scriptures. And in several places, it talks about that you have to believe what you say. It says you have to believe what you say. It's not Kirk told Eric to say this, and then Eric believes it. No, Eric has to believe it. So when you start small like that with children and you get them believing with small things and you continuously let it grow and you add to it, they start believing the words that come out of their mouth. And when they believe the words that come out of their mouth, man, that's a powerful, powerful person. So many times, you guys probably did business with people where you would hear something that they would say, and half of that stuff they're saying, they don't believe it themselves. They don't. They're just saying something just to say it and just try to get through the meeting and kind of say something you want to hear. But if we start truly believing the words that come out of our mouth and not just say stuff just to say it, then we'll start seeing some amazing results in our lives. That's one of the things I knew I had to stop doing because, I was into man pleasing. I was into man pleasing big time. I always wanted to, I know I'm a big guy and I play sports and, you're probably popular, but I still want to please all the people around me. So I would say stuff that I didn't even believe. And it stagnated me. It hurt me. But now, man, I watch my words and I make sure that my family does the same. My boys, I started with them, and now I'm passing that down to my grandchildren.
So you mentioned that you like Atomic Habits. You must be a reader. Are there other books or publications that have influenced you in a major way?
I'm actually looking at my library of books right now. The first book that really affected me, probably more so than anything, is The Alchemist. Seems like it's just so simple. It's an answer that everybody would say, but that book made me understand that what I do on a daily basis has the potential to affect people all over the world. If I am not careful with my daily decisions, how I live my life, how I'm always above reproach, Kirk, we talked about that earlier, then I can have a negative effect on people's lives. So that book and the travels of that young man through all those things that he went through, and then to come back, and I don't want to ruin the book. I mean, that's probably everybody, their mother probably read the book, but some probably haven't. But at the end, he really realized, and he looked at every adventure that he had been through, and he saw how it had an effect on not only his life, but the lives of everybody around him. And then also he realized that, hey, I always had the treasure inside me all the time. I always had it with me. I was looking everywhere else for it, but it was always here. So The Alchemist is probably one of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah, that's a beautiful message. If you haven't read it, go pick that book up. Eric, we always end the podcast by asking the same question of our guests. And it's interesting because we're 68 episodes in and no one has answered.
That's awesome.
Thank you. No one has answered this question the same, which is, I think why this question is so magical is because it means so many things to so many different people. But as we hear answers to this question, we can evaluate in our own minds what it means to us and how we can change the direction of our lives to be a positive, more influential person. So I'm going to ask you the question, what do you think it means to be a gentleman?
When I hear that word, I break it down to gentle and man. The thing about it is most times men are seen as gentle. They're seen as a man, I'm macho, I'm strong. I can handle everything. I could do anything. But when you're a gentleman, that kind of guides your actions. It helps you to understand why you're strong. It helps you to understand why you're willing to take those responsibilities on. And the gentle part connects you with the people that you love. Because if you ever seen a guy that just was this super macho guy and he was always like, I'm machismo and this and that, and he seemed like the guy that was unapproachable, that you never wanted to be around. But when you're a gentleman and when you're allowing other people into your world and you're sharing some of that strength and some of that knowledge and some of that wisdom that you gained as a man, it's powerful. So a gentleman is a man who understands his strength and knows how to use it to enhance the lives of everyone around him.
Beautiful, beautiful, Eric. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. You've put yourself out in every instance that I have had the opportunity to interact with you as a gentleman. And
Wow.
And I thank you for that. You're somebody that I look to for inspiration to model my life after. So Thank you very
No
much.
pressure, Kirk. Thank you for that. No
Well,
pressure, Kirk.
I think you're that to a lot of people. So
thank you, my friend. I really appreciate you guys. I love the way we connected. First of all, I was just happy to hear from you, man, because sometimes when you meet certain people, it's a genuine connection.
Yeah.
You know, the conversation that we had when we first met, you know, it wasn't, like I said, this thing about, you know, comparison or we're men and I got this and you got that. It was just a conversation of, number one, how we could add value to one another. And that was powerful. So I hope that the stuff we talked about today can really add value to the lives of the people who hear this and help fathers have a great relationship with their sons. Because I certainly have one with mine.
If people want to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
The best way to connect with me is on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and even Twitter. It is Express Your Perspective, all together @ Express Your Perspective. If you type that in, you'll get all my social media profiles and pages. Also, my website is expressyourperspective.com. You'll find out a little bit more about my organization, what we do, the type of workshops we do. And also, if you want to purchase the book, it's there as well. The book is also available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and it's in all those places as well. So
cool. And where could people watch the documentary Love and Legacy?
It is on YouTube right now. And I don't know how much longer it's going to be on YouTube because people have actually contacted me about actually having it as a film that they would show to different families all over the world. So it's kind of cool, but it's on YouTube right now. And if you search on YouTube for Love and Legacy and Express Your Perspective, it'll pop right up.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to doing that myself.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch it with my little ones.
It's a great documentary and short film to watch with them. And it's only 30 minutes long because I didn't want to make something too long because, you know, if the kids are little, they'll start getting fidgety. So you'll enjoy it.
Well, thanks, Eric. I can't thank you enough for your time and your thoughts and insights. It's been a fantastic podcast. Thank you.
Man, thank you guys. And I appreciate you. Have an amazing day.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us on the podcast today. Eric Harrison, thanks for your time. And if you want to connect with him, please do so. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Kirk Chugg.
And I'm Cory Moore. Raise, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great day.